So good afternoon, everyone. This is Martin Bogdan from Accra. Welcome to the first of the CARE online talks with the country in focus, France. For the beginning, as people are still joining the webinar, just a few housekeeping remarks, which I believe everyone is already familiar with the whole webinar craze that's been happening in the last few months. So yes, as you might assume, keep yourself please muted when you're not speaking. Keep your cameras turned off, and feel free to use chat for discussions, and also you can use the chat to write your name to write your name when you want to raise the question for the speakers. We will also have a designated time for discussion afterwards, so you can also keep your questions for them. Also, you can ask the questions directly by turning on your cameras and turning on your microphones, since we are in a Zoom meeting and not a Zoom webinar. So this is also possible for a more interactive session. Having said that, I can share a few information with you about the CARE project and about its current states now. So as you can see in the slide, CARE is the Horizon 2020 funded project by the European Commission. It started in January 2019, and it's taking place until the end of the year. Its main objective is to support the target group that we will be talking about today, and these are the researchers with refugee background. We consider the definition of researchers with refugee background as broadly as possible, which includes also scholars at risk and people of different political statuses in European countries. The CARE project is coordinated by ACA, the Academic Cooperation Association from Brussels, which is an association of national agencies throughout Europe. The project partners are DAAD from Germany and EDUFI from Finland. The target countries are listed in the slide, for which we will have the targeted webinars or online talks, as we call them, also. The support networks that we use for the work in the projects are ACA members and the Scholars at Risk and your access networks also. And we have the members of the advisory board from DICU, SAIA, Alexander from Humboldt Foundation, and Scholar Rescue Fund. So just briefly, where we are standing now with the project, we started with stakeholder mapping in February 2019 to kind of map the stakeholders throughout the target countries. Then we've had extensive focus groups with the researchers with a refugee background, and in the same time we had an employer survey running in those countries to see kind of what are the needs, what is the situation among employers also. And when we gathered all of this data and information, we are using them to produce country guides for each of the target countries, which will be published online soon. And also at the same time, we are running these online talks. So now we are starting with the online talk for France, and we will be conducting online talks for the next 2 months. And for the updates about the online talks, please keep an eye on our email correspondence and Twitter account, where we will advertise all of them. Moving on now to France, I will just briefly, before announcing the speakers and starting the conversation, I would just briefly like to outline what findings we had in the focus group and in the employer survey in France. So in the focus groups, basically we had quite a big participation, and the researchers were focusing mostly on the challenges they are facing in finding the employment in France, that mostly, as in many other countries, also dealt with language issues, and also like professional immersion to the academia, whereas also as one kind of overreaching issue throughout the target countries that we have is the competitiveness in academia, which is a setting which all of you are very familiar with, that is competitive as it is, and then it's actually gets even more competitive if you are coming from a from this background. Also, discrimination at workplace was also reported in some cases by the participants. There were some also administrative challenges relating to the procedures and lack of information, or having a lack of access to the information that is already existing in France. As all of us know here about the PAUSE program, which is publishing many relevant information, especially with their handbook. And we are very happy also that we are collaborating with them. And we have their input also for the country guide for France, where some of the information will also be presented, which brings us to the needs and recommendations from the focus groups, which focus mostly on having coordinated professional orientation and introduction to the specific labor market conditions in France. Also having a need for a platform to make themselves visible and to present in relevant networks. Also to tackle with language courses, some targeted action would be also required here as they see it. Also, to sum up with focus groups, this kind of brings us to the eternal question whether having a designated call and designated actions is actually undermining their perspectives as researchers, and it's focusing mostly on their identity as refugees. This is something we could talk about today in the discussions, and speakers are also invited to reflect on this in their presentations. So yes, and to move on to the employers survey we have to say that most of the respondents in the employers survey were academic institutions in France. So we had challenges in finding the private sector actors to fill in the survey. But basically, what was the most positive impact of having researchers with refugee backgrounds in the at the working place was their language and professional skills, and what brought them there and what was most helpful was exactly to have adequate information and available financial support. Available financial support means in most cases having external funding. They've also contributed to the internationalization at the workplace, but not as to such extent as with their professional skills. Also, there are some of the obstacles which are not quite surprising, which then they deal with recognition of qualifications, rules governing the labor market access, reunification, family member issues, and of course linguistic issues. So which brings me to our speakers, who I invite to reflect on some of these findings and to present the work that they are doing. These are Melike Riollet from Association Bernard Gregory, Mathieu Schneider from the University of Strasbourg and the founder of the Men's Network. And we have Mohamed Meri, the researcher with a refugee background, who is succeeding quite well at the University of Strasbourg, and who also reflects a lot on these issues and has developed a model which is helpful for the researchers in a similar situation. So I would like to give the floor to Melike Riollet, who will speak about transitioning to non-academic setting for researchers with refugee background from her experience. And Melike is a researcher herself with a PhD in sociology. She has worked in public sector, she has worked in a private sector as a researcher, so I think she has really a broad and relevant overview of the issues, and she's using her experience in her work at ABG to support researchers who are transitioning to non-academic settings. So Melike, the floor is yours. We are happy to have you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Martin. So as you said, I'm a former researcher and I'm a trainer and international project manager at ABG. So I'll first start by presenting briefly ABG and then what we do in the framework of the PAUSE program to support researchers in exile for their career development. This will be also the occasion to talk briefly about the job market for PhDs in France and how this affects researchers with international or refugee background. Then I will mention quickly the results we get, how these researchers pursue their career, and I will conclude on what is left to be done. So as you see in the one slide that I could prepare, ABG is a non-profit organization which is partly funded by the French Ministry of Higher Education and Research. We are an association dedicated to PhD recruitment and career development outside academia. So we have three main activities. Very quickly, these are recruitment, mainly through our job site, job board, information activities through our website, newsletter, and also through the information and networking events that we organize. We share relevant information for PhDs about funding opportunities, about mobility opportunities, testimonials of PhDs working outside academia. And trainings, of course, group trainings and individual trainings that allow us to prepare PhD candidates and PhDs for their career transition. So ABG is very active across Europe, and of course we work with an international audience in France as well. And since 2018, we have been working with the PAUSE program that you all know, which is a national program for the urgent aid and reception of scientists in exile. So we get to work more and more with researchers with a refugee background or researchers at risk. So recently, PAUSE program focuses really on the career development of their beneficiaries to ensure that PAUSE beneficiaries integrate professionally after the 1 or 2 year contracts that they have in France. We should note that not all of these researchers can stay in academia in France. Just to give a quick overview of the academic job market in France, each year in France there is less than 2,000 permanent positions, teaching and research positions in the public sector for 14,000 new PhDs. So, of course, it doesn't mean that it's impossible to get a job in academia, but as Martin mentioned it in the introduction, the selection process is highly competitive, and it may be particularly complicated for foreign researchers because they are not familiar with the system, because they don't have much time to prepare. For example, in the case of PAUSE beneficiaries, they have just 1 or 2 year contracts, and they may have other practical and administrative problems to deal with. So they lack time. They may also, and it's very important, lack the local network that would help them to fully understand the selection process and fill the gaps in their CV. So these researchers, many of them need to explore other options than academia as French researchers or the other PhDs in France. Other options ranging from research and development in the private sector, consulting, technology transfer, scientific communication, marketing, etc. So indeed, recent surveys in France on professional situation of PhDs show that after 5 years after their PhD, more than half of the PhDs find jobs outside academia, either in the private sector or in the public sector, but they have non-research roles, like, for example, project coordination, scientific communication in research institutions. So ABG's role is to precisely to facilitate this transition. So how we do this? How do we do this? By group trainings for PAUSE beneficiaries with small groups. We help them get familiar with the job market in France. We help them define their career plan, develop their network. We work on their communication skills, how we work with them to ensure that they can market their skills, which are transferable to jobs outside academia. And we prepare them, of course, for the recruitment process. We also propose individual coaching to focus on specific problems they may have, specific needs, and also to motivate them. Here, it would be interesting to note that POSE program attributes to the host institutions, to the universities, to the research institutions, a package, a funding, special funding, so that their researchers can benefit from specific trainings they need. Also, we help them through our networking events. We put them in touch with professionals who can guide them, who can give them insight about the opportunities available, and who can give them feedback on their profile. What are the results? How do researchers in exile pursue their career in France? So besides the ones who stay in France, in public research in France, these joint efforts give results, because we have cases of international researchers who create their startups, who take up opportunities in other countries, but also we have more and more researchers with a refugee background who find permanent jobs here in France. For example, to give two concrete examples, recently one researcher that we have been supporting, working with, found a job in a private engineering school where he teaches, of course, but where he has larger responsibilities as well. There's one who works currently as a consultant in a private company. So to conclude, maybe on what is left to be done, what is important, in the upcoming months, with the POSE program, ABG is planning to focus on more and more on networking activities to help the POSE beneficiaries meet each other. But most importantly, meet the previous beneficiaries who have successfully integrated transitioned to a stable career in France. And also networking activities with employers, such as company visits that ABG organizes. What is our goal? It is to change how these researchers are perceived. As again, Martin mentioned it at the beginning, these researchers are above all researchers and more than individuals with a refugee background. They are highly qualified international researchers who have specific constraints, yes, specific difficulties, but also a lot of strengths. They have technical skills, they have language skills, but also they have very important personal skills such as resilience, adaptability that they can put into use in academia, but also outside academia. Also, as any other international researcher, these researchers are eligible and they are excellent candidates for European fundings, such as Marie Curie International Individual Fellowships, that companies can benefit from to hire them. So in this sense, ABG will keep raising awareness in this sense amongst employers in our network. Thank you very much.
I would transition to our second speaker, Dr. Mathieu Schneider from the University of Strasbourg, who is a well-known name in France, but also in Europe in the field of supporting researchers with a refugee background. Dr. Schneider is an associate professor in history of music and also vice president of the University of Strasbourg. With an international experience in teaching and research in academia, but he is also committed to social and societal issues at universities such as diversity, inclusion, and especially students and researchers at risk. Mr. Schneider has created the MENS network, the French network of universities engaged for refugees, which is a bottom-up initiative that got quite a lot of attention in the last few years and has managed to have a really strong impact also at the level of national policies. So I invite Mr. Schneider to present us the work that they've been doing in the last years, but also where are they standing at the moment, and then we will continue our discussion. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Martin, for this introduction, and thank you for AK for the invitation to this webinar. I hope we have many participants and very many participants interested in the topic. I just want to correct something, Martin. I have not been creating MENS, but we were a whole group of committed people in France that decided in September 2017 to launch a network. And nowadays, 3 years after, we have 41 universities who are members of the MENS network out of 75 in France, which is quite a high and good number. And we are working together. We decided to go together in order to help people and students and researchers in the universities who take care of students and scholars in exile. And we say in exile, which means with refugee background, because we are not only concerned with refugees, but as you said, generally with people with this refugee background. So I think lots of people here know the MENS network. So you have some figures, you have the aims of network. We are basically sharing good practices, and we want to be the voice of the universities in order to help in the universities themselves with our stakeholders, because we work together, like, for example, for the researchers with SPOSE. We want really to help the welcome and training programs for researchers and students. What is, maybe we can turn to the next slide, which is more focused on the challenges. And I think this is exactly the topic of this webinar today. So Melike from ABG has already been speaking about POSE, and I guess lots of people here know this very, very well-known program, and we are in France very proud of that. We have to say that we as universities, we couldn't do anything for researchers at risk without the help of POSE. And POSE was launched exactly in the same year as we launched our network. And maybe this is not a coincidence, since we were a couple of people from MENS associated with the ministry together to create POSE. And POSE is basically, at the beginning, was just thought as being the support, financial support for researchers, but it does much more. Since you've heard, there are meetings, there are training courses, and there is also a bit advocacy, which is very important, because POSE is located, as maybe you know, in the Collège de France. It means it's a very prestigious institution in France, and I think the voice of POSE is very important for the ministry, for the researchers also. It has a credibility, and it shows also that researchers at risk are to be considered at the same level as other researchers. So this advocacy, we do it, we MENS and we universities from MENS together with POSE. And I would say we are quite complementary with POSE, since as I've said, POSE brings a support of 50 to 80% of the position, and the university has to bring, depending on how many researchers are at the university, from 20 to 50% of the position. So universities have to give money, but POSE gives the main help. But money and position is not all, and of course we need to find a position to make assistance for lots of practical things like accommodation, and also we are more and more involved in the universities in training and accompanying researchers after the 1 or 2 years of POSE, because the main problem in such a program like POSE, but in other international programs of that kind, is that researchers have only 1 or 2 years in the program. And the main question, and Melike spoke about that, is what do they do after that? So we have basically, with researchers at risk, 3 main challenges in MENS. The first, of course, in integration into the academic life. The second is the social integration generally. It's not only to be integrated in the university, but generally in the city, in the society you live in. And of course, and this is the main one, I think now, in the integration in the labor market after the 1 or 2 years in POSE. And I would maybe add here one more challenge now, because of the crisis we are going through, which are the borders. And you know, lots of the borders are closed or very difficult to pass. And this makes our job, as well for the researchers at risk who have difficulties to come to France, or for the researchers at risk leaving the POSE program and wanting to have a position in another country, it makes it much more difficult. And we have to be also aware of that. So what can be done, and to address these challenges? So the first thing we do in MENS and in universities is doing coaching inside the university. Coaching, because you've heard the figures by Melike, that the positions inside the universities in France are very, very tiny. So we have lots of applicants for very, very few positions. And of course, this makes it difficult for scholars at risk who are not trained to reach such a position. And even 2 years is sometimes quite short. So that's why we have to give them opportunities. And the first opportunities we have to give to them is the opportunity to teach. Because in France, we have researcher positions, but mainly in the CNRS or in the research institutions. But at the universities, you basically have to do both research and teaching. And if you have not on your CV, if you have no teaching line, if you cannot prove that you've been teaching, then it's very difficult to get a position. So I think this is the first thing we have to do. And this is something which is in the responsibility of the university and not of POSE. Of course, they also have to be trained in French, in English, and they have to be involved in the research life of the university. It means when researchers from the university apply for a program, ERC, or a national program, ANR, it's very important that you have also the researchers at risk involved in the program, and they not say stay behind or at the not in the program. So I think this is the main thing we have to do, and what we are trying to implement in France. And I've seen, for example, in Germany, this is something which is much more done by the universities, is the mentoring. That you have one person or two persons in the research unit of the scholar at risk, who is in care. Let's say we can give advice, who can help the scholars to have new networks, and this is very important. And we have I think, to develop that in more and more in France. Maybe we can turn to the last slide, which is a slide more focused on what we do at Strasbourg University, because as you see, I speak here on behalf both of the men's network, but also of my university. And just to say, to give an example of what we can concretely do. So in Strasbourg, we have launched a policy for researchers at risk, which means that we have a dedicated commission with members from the research council of the university and the supervision of 2 vice presidents. We have an internal application process to get the funding from the university. They need funding from POSE, but also from the university. So we have an internal process. And we have some specific criteria. For example, for us, it's important that there is a pre-existing link between the applicant and the university, so that when the scholar arrives, he or she already knows some people in the research unit, and it helps. We have a dedicated fund of 100,000 euro each year for 3 to 4 researchers. We have dedicated staff member, and we have also a welcome center for foreign students and researchers. And the result in Strasbourg is we have currently 8 fellows, but only 1 has found a position, and it was outside the university. So it means that the work which is done with ABG is very important. And we are now trying to give more and more importance to mentoring, to training courses, to coaching, and to extend the job opportunities within networks. It means that we want to say, okay, when one researcher is leaving at Strasbourg, would there be another opportunity or position in another university in France? Or we work also together with our colleagues from Germany, very near, and they also have programs, and we want to share more and more information in order to give more opportunities to our researchers. So I thank you very much for listening. I hope it was not too long, 11 minutes, but I give the floor back to Martin.
Thank you very much, Mathieu. No, it was right on time, right on time. Great, thank you. And thank you very much for raising some of the new points, and especially the situation regarding the COVID-19 crisis with the border issues. This is something I wanted to raise during the discussions, but thank you for the heads up, and also thank you for a listing of some of the things that need to be done. So if there is anyone in the audience who maybe wants to react on some of these points now, I welcome them to do it, or if not, we can also keep it for the discussion. Okay, if not, we can move to Mr. Mohamed Meri from the University of Strasbourg. Mohamed Meri, before coming to the University of Strasbourg, was a professor at the University of Damascus in Syria and University of Gaziantep in Turkey. He's author of a couple of dozen of books and scientific articles relating to human resources, talent management, sociology of work and organizations, and so on. And next to his academic work, Mr. Meri is very active in supporting his fellow researchers with a refugee background. So Mr. Meri, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Martin, for inviting me to this webinar. And thanks to Melike, thanks to nice Vice President of our university, Mathieu Schneider. I want to distinguish between 2 realities. According to the observation of profile, we have 2 profiles. Profile concerning labor market for scientists in France or in Europe in general, and profile researchers in exile or refugee. Each of these 2 profiles has a different reality. because in France or in Europe, the profile for scientists is very rigorous. Rigorous in knowledge, rigorous in experience, rigorous in skills, rigorous in well-being. But in the subdeveloped country, most of researchers in exile or refugee came. There is a flexible background, a flexible profile. For example, about knowledge, they have a diploma, is a very good diploma, is recognized, but maybe they have some problem about professional, about societal knowledge, about cultural knowledge, also about experience, about skills, about well-being. They have some lack of experience, skills, or well-being. In French university or center of research, it's very rigorous to have a professional situation. There is a research methodology, teaching models, networks, scientific relation, behavior à la française, etc. is not exist in or in the profile of scientific or researcher refugee. Please move the. Okay, about these two realities, how to do. A researcher in exile or refugee face several challenges, short and long term. For solving this challenge, there is a potential way to overcome them. First of all, when we train this, when we train the researcher refugee, it's not enough to impose a training program or typical training program, because scientists are not sample workers. They have a specific characteristic. They need build a new competency block, because the competency block is composed from 4 components: knowledge and experiences and skills and well-being. They need a new competency. This new competency came through continuous training engineering. They need a personalized training needs, because they have a less knowledge, less skills, less well-being, but they have more knowledge. That means we should prepare for them a special programs, special training programs based on personalized training needs. We should know their needs. We can't impose to all researchers the same program. I attend some programs in several associations. They have same content, same program. Maybe there's some difference between paragraph and another paragraph, but the whole content is the same. We can't work with the researcher in exile. They came from several disciplines, several specialty, with the same content of training program. Please move to next. To help researcher or organization or institution wishing to support a researcher in exile or refugee, it's better to integrate them into scientific professional networks. But how? I don't know. It's responsible to decision making in France. I propose to cooperate for create a new association, a new organization in France, as partners to association already existed. It's for only scientists in exile or refugees, and for giving more power to this association, it's better to share management, to co-manage, to work together as a partner, because scientists, refugees are involved in the issue of their socio-professional integration. Above that also, it's better also to create a partnership network, a French institution or association with association of scientists, refugee or in exile. Why? To train the people concerned in order to acquire the new skills or new competency block corresponding to the requirement of French labor market or European labor market, because we have two components as a balance. The competency block of scientists, the competency block of labor market in France. Normally, it's not balanced. It's not balanced because the requirement of labor market in France is very, very rigorous, very big, if we compare with the profile of scientific in exile. Finally, please, the next slide. According to my experience and to my work in France, especially in Strasbourg University, what's work about or for researcher in exile? If we take my situation and my colleague, such as a researcher refugee, about the professional and career aspect, all French university give language training opportunity, give legalization of diploma or the obtained, give recognition of diploma, give housing, give the opportunity for school for children, give most of information on access to psychosocial support. Also, there is some problem. The problem is related to equivalence of competency, because they have already flexible competency in their country. It's better to build new competency block according to the requirement of the local labor market in France or Europe. And it's better to enhance the professional career guidance and match making opportunity. Finally, I would talk about my experience at the Strasbourg University Laboratoire Sage as an example of good practice. Here I want to thank Matthew Schneider, who was the first person I contact before my starting at Strasbourg University. He's a very nice vice president in our university. I said honestly, during the 3 months of my work, the university gave me total personal and family integration, administrative, social, economic, professional, all total needs for integration. And during the 2 years of my work, my laboratory and my university also, Mr. Schneider, support me to work perfectly at the level, scientific level, network of relation, a partnership to complete my research in my laboratory, and to propose also a development project at the national level and at the European level. It was very, very good practice, my experience at the University of Strasbourg. Thank to University of Strasbourg, also thank to Program POSE for this opportunity. And thank you all.
And thank you very much to you, Mohammed. It's really really nice feeling to hear such nice success stories. So I would like to open up the floor for the discussion now. I already received 2 questions in my private chat, so I will raise them now. So one is addressed to Melike Riollet, and it's more of a comment than a question from Ali Tarad, who says, academics with a refugee background need some guide procedure in the private sector rather than the public one after finishing their studies for PhD students. This is the same case for researchers after the 2 years supported by POSE program, for example. Thank you. So Melike, if you would like to reflect on this a little bit.
Sorry, I couldn't hear very well. The academics need more support for their careers outside academia?
Exactly, in the private sector.
In the private sector. Yes, this is the case actually for both researchers with a refugee background, international researchers, and we can say that it's the same thing for the French researchers as well, because the thing is that the PhD candidates and PhDs working as researchers, they already have the relevant network, the academic network that can guide them, that can support them for the academic careers, because they're already in it. But it's more complicated to vision themselves outside academia, especially when they don't have a local network, when they don't know already people who are working on these jobs or on these sectors that may be of interest for them. So that's why we are encouraging them and we are guiding them through their networking activities. This is our mission.
Thank you very much. And are there any other reactions? Because if not, I have another question, which is a very specific one. It says, I live in France as an asylum seeker. I'm from Turkey. I have military background and finished 2 master degrees, one in international relations and one in leadership. I couldn't start the doctorate program because of problems I experienced in Turkey for 5 years. Can I also have an opportunity in this platform to integrate any academia or market? Thank you. So maybe Mr. Schneider, you would like to raise this?
Yes, basically the POSE program is also open for PhD students, but I know that we have here 2 delegates from POSE program that they can give maybe more precise answer to that. There are PhD students in the POSE program and in the universities. So the first thing is to apply for a PhD in a university. So this person needs to, if he has a master degree, to find a subject for the PhD and to find a supervisor. And I think when he or she has this framework for the PhD, then he can see with the university and with POSE what is doable. I know that from university to university, the policies are quite different. At the beginning, for example, in Strasbourg, we had no PhD students, but we opened that to this kind of scholars. So it depends.
Thank you.
But maybe Hélène, I know Hélène Jarry is here. Maybe she wants to come into the discussion and give some more information on PhD programs in POSE.
Yeah,
Please,
thank
yes.
you. Thank you, Mathieu. I think you gave already all the relevant information, but yes, I can confirm that this researcher can have a look at our website, and he will find all the eligibility criteria to the POSE program. He has to be registered in first year of PhD, but if he doesn't have any contact in French higher education institution, we cannot also help for the placement. So all the information are available on our website, and he can send an email for any further information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hélène. Fantastic. I hope this information will be helpful. We have a question from Orla Duc from the Inspire Europe project in the chat. So I invite you to read it. The question is about engagement with non-academic sector and companies, governmental bodies, etc., to recruit researchers with refugee background. So do you think that diversity, inclusion, and equality programs of companies provide a good entry point for these discussions? Since these topics are quite topical, actually, also in the recruitment in the private sector, I think this could be a good chance for raising these issues also. Who wants to reply to the question?
I can, if you like. Yes, of course, these kind of programs can be a good entry point. The problem is that not all companies have these kind of specific measures, specific programs. In France, it's not very, very common. That's why our position is to say that we are talking here about researchers with already really good qualifications. So we must consider them above all as qualified researchers rather than refugees. This doesn't mean, of course, that they don't need specific support. As Mathieu mentioned it, they need often they need a push, like that we can call as positive discrimination, some specific opportunities for them. But otherwise, with adequate support and training on how they can communicate, how they can propose their services to the labor market, I think that they're already really qualified, even when in cases where they can't benefit from specific company programs.
Thank you, Melike. We have a question here for the Grenoble University. Please, Elisa, go ahead. I mean, feel free to turn on your mic or your camera.
Yes, hello, everybody. I'm from the University of Grenoble Alps, and I have questions regarding two of our researchers they are from Syria, and it's a whole family. They received help from the POSE program during the last years. But right now, we can't find the help of POSE program just ended, and we can't find any position from them within our university to give them jobs. So I have sent so many emails to try to find some position. What would be your advice? Maybe Hélène is aware of this case of this couple of Syrian, but I had the main researcher with the referent for them online 2 days ago, and he is really desperate about both the French system and the lack of position for them. So I don't know what else we can do to help them. Yes, Mathieu, please.
Actually, we are thinking about two things, and also with POSE together and with MENS. The one thing is building up a university in exile, or Collège du Monde, maybe it will be the name, which which can be a place where first the post fellows can teach and have students, which is very important if they want to have a position after the 2 years in post, even a postdoc or ATER or like such kind of positions. This is the first thing. And where also in this college, we could hope in a second step that we might have some positions for some fellows from post that could have 1 or 2 more years, because we know that 2 years sometimes is very short if you have had an interruption in your academic career and you have not enough publication for a proper application. Second proposal for us is to build a network of French-speaking universities, not only in France, but in other countries like Belgium, like Switzerland, like Canada. And we were having discussions with the colleagues from these countries in order that we can exchange our needs and opportunities and say, okay, he has been or she has been in Grenoble, but we have in the same field a position in Brussels, and we could have maybe the opportunity for financing it. So these are 2 possibilities that we could implement in the next months. Actually, last year we were at the same point of the discussion, but during the crisis it stopped, and now we have to go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mathieu, for a very specific and concrete answer. I see my colleague Maria from the CARE project wants to raise a question. So Maria, please go ahead.
Yes, you can hear me, right? Hello. Well, first of all, from the same office as Martin, I would just like to thank our speakers again for their contributions. I actually wanted to ask something. It's addressed to all of you, I suppose, from different perspectives. So I would like to refer a little bit about what Martin said at the beginning about the activities that we had earlier, the focus groups and employer survey, some of the results that we came with, that we have, and not only in France, but across countries. And I would like to refer to one which concerns peer support. So feedback that we received across the board, I would say, is that there is really a strong need for more peer support and building peer support networks. So for example, when you, Mathieu, were saying that you're trying to create a network of, let's say, Francophone universities and to work with it, I'm thinking about the combination. There's always a combination of bottom-up and top-down activities going on, you know. For also, men's network is a good example of how you have to start an activity and then it kind of, you get the momentum. So I was wondering in France, whether when it comes to academic sector or non-academic sectors, whether there are some kind of peer support networks, or at least thinking about this. Maybe also a question for Professor Mary about how much you had support from your colleagues, so from your fellows and peers with similar experiences when you started, you know, your integration process. I think this is something quite valuable that we can all learn from, and especially researchers with in this group. So whoever wants to start or to answer, thank you.
Maybe I again, sorry, but yes, peer support is very important. I was speaking in my very small speech about what I called mentoring, because our colleagues and neighbors from Germany, they have really a very strong framework for the Village Parts Initiative, where you have to have a mentor, which means you have to have a reference person at the university which takes care of you or gives you advice. And Mohammed was speaking about that, saying that it's very important that you build up the skills, and for that, also for the academic skills. I mean, for the non-academic skills, this is something different, but we have also to work on that with ABG. But for academic skills, it's very important, and that the person is from the field. So not if you are in history, not somebody from chemistry, but somebody that knows the field, the networks, and that can introduce you into other colleagues. And what we saw we had a very good experience in Strasbourg with the first fellow who came, who was very good introduced in Strasbourg, and he was really mentored by a colleague, and he helped him, and now he could create a startup, and now he works in the company. So I think it's very important. And what we also should do, maybe in pause, and I was speaking with Laura Loéac on that when we met once after in Germany, it was that we have to build a network of the mentors in order to train also the mentors of how to help and how to give advice to researchers at risk. So this is, for me, the two levels: mentor and training the mentors.
Maybe I can just add one sentence, also maybe a slight specification there as well. I was also thinking about, so there are colleagues with the same background. I was also thinking about researchers who had gone through the same experience, so to speak. Just to share one impression from the focus group, especially in bigger European countries. I think we realized that there aren't so many opportunities sometimes for researchers to get together and then exchange their experience and really talk face to face about, you know, how they've managed or haven't managed and what they know or not. So sharing experiences and information seem to be quite valuable during these
so you mean peer like alumni from the
in a way, yes,
program.
also
So,
alumni.
POSE is organizing such meetings for fellows and former fellows, I guess. I don't know if the former fellows are also included in the meetings, Hélène, but I know that
actually, actually, this is one of our big projects of this end of year. We want to launch officially a network of POSE alumni. It's for the moment, it's a kind of, we have informal discussions with former laureates, but we want to have something really organized and have a real concrete network which could actually help all the researchers to with their needs in professional career development and social integration. So we are really working on that, and we will work in close connection with ABG as well for this project, and we will keep you posted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your replies, and also for announcing the actions that you will be taking. I think they seem very, very relevant and to the point for the researchers. I don't see any other questions, and we've passed our time already. And I wouldn't like to hold anyone by the computer on a Friday afternoon. So I would like to say one big thank you, especially to our speakers, to Melike, Mathieu, and Mohammed, and also to the audience for very good questions, very topical questions, and very concrete questions. And also to the researchers, I hope that this project will also contribute by providing relevant information to your future career paths. And also a thank you to our project partners from DAAD and EDUFI. Having said that, I can announce the new, the next online talks that we will be holding. The details will be available soon on our channels, so please keep an eye. They will be targeted to other target countries we have in Europe, and then we will conclude in November with the final EU level online talk. So this is all from me and from us from the CARE project for today. I wish everyone a nice weekend, and thank you very much for following us here.